Hi everyone, my name is Yiran and I'm a PhD candidate from Caltech. It's great to be here to host this TMS talk, episode 9 of season 2. And Kewang Nan is co-hosting with me, and I'm passing to him for a quick self-introduction.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Kewang Nan, and I'm currently a postdoc at MIT, working on ingestible sensors. Should I pass it back to you, or?
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah. First of all, thanks everyone in the group for planning this talk and make it happen, especially for Zhang for all the event planning, coordination, and poster design. And thanks to Kewang Nan and Shiming Zhang for post writing, and also for the post proofreading. Moreover, thanks to Bing for the event promotion, as well as Chi An Yan for the video editing for the entire season. Now I'm gonna briefly introduce the agenda of the entire talk. So I will have a brief introduction of our society, as many new friends are joining us today. Then Kewang will introduce today's speaker, Professor Shiming Zhang, who will share with us his exciting research progress, which will last 40 to 45 minutes. Furthermore, after the talk, we will have a 30-minute Q&A session.
Okay, thank you, Yiran, and thank you everyone for attending. It's my honor today to introduce our speaker, Professor Shiming Zhang, who is an assistant professor now at the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering at University of Hong Kong. And he's mostly working on organic bioelectronics based medical devices and soft OECTs and OECT based neuromorphic devices. For those of you who don't know what OECT is, I think you'll find answers. So before that, Professor Zhang was spent 3 years at UCLA as a postdoc and obtained his PhD from University of Montreal in Canada. And he obtained his BS and MS from both from Jilin University in China. And he received numerous awards, including the prestigious Vanier Canada Scholarship from the government of Canada, and the Outstanding International Graduate Student Award from the government of Quebec, as well as the Chinese government award for Outstanding Self-Financed Student. And apart from these, he is also a associate editor of the journal Diagnostic and Therapeutic Devices, and many others. So without further ado, I'll just pass the stage to Professor Zhang.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Yiran and Kewang for the introduction. And also thank you, Zhang, for the invitation. So the topic I'm going to present today is called soft organic bioelectronics. So it basically actually is a branch of organic electronics. And then with the development of organic electronics, and then the typical product is organic light emitting diodes, which is already in the market. And also the other one is organic solar cells. And in 2010, so there's another research grant called Organic Bioelectronics, which is the use of organic electronics for biomedical applications. And during my PhD, I studied another direction, which is actually to make these devices flexible and soft. Of course, it's a matter of material processing, device manufacturing. And after PhD, then I started to move to UCLA, is in Ali Kadem Hosseini lab. So that lab focused a lot on the biomedical applications using materials or devices. And I studied there for 3 years. So basically, this is something about my research. Okay, so I did a very full journey of my academic research. So I did my master's 3 years, PhD 5 years, postdoc 3 years, and then now I become faculty, which is also lucky because I didn't do too long postdoc, actually just 2 years, and because of pandemic, and there's 1 year more. So at the Yiran University, I did my bachelor at the Yiran University. So from 2005 to 2009. So what I studied is called semiconductor materials and semiconductor devices. Actually, Yiran University is the first university in China that opens its courses on semiconductors. It's around the 1950s. A professor called Gao Dingsan is also an academician in China. And I studied there from 2009 to 2012, work on a device called OLED. I think most of you are familiar with this kind of device. I'm lucky to join a very great team. So working on making, for example, this is use OLED for display and make this kind of devices in the clean room, many layers. And also there's another project to use OLED for micro display. Actually, this is all very well developed now, but this is 10 years ago. The OLED market actually in China now is very well established and is very competitive globally. And I was lucky to involve in this kind of project to make the first micro OLED kind of prototype in China. Is kind of with many pixels. Is a national, I think, 973 project with a very famous project in China. And after that, I realized actually where I should go after my PhD. I did 3 years research on OLED. And at that time, so there's another paper came out called organic bioelectronics. I think it's cool using organic electronics because there's a lot of potentials, right? So it's flexible, biocompatible, so compete with other technologies. Definitely, it has a lot of room to explore. So I moved to Canada. There's a professor, it is just an assistant professor at that time, but it's very promising. I think this field, I like it. And then with my background in organic electronics, and then I moved to Canada to start my PhD journey. Mostly I was focusing on the material processing, which is the processing of semiconductor called the conducting polymer P.PSS, which is very hot, kind of a hot topic in nowadays. But actually, at that time, it's not very hot. It's around 2013, which is around 8 years ago. And I started to process P.dot and make P.dot devices. As you can see, this is 10 micrometer or 5 micrometer channels on plastic. I spent a lot of time in the clean room, maybe 1 year, 2 years. I mean, just for a single processing parameter. And then I started to move to make things on elastomer, which makes the microfabrication more difficult. But I still can make 10 micrometer channels on the elastomer. And while you process a lot of things in lab, then with the first-hand experience, you may find something that's weird, but which is also new to the community. For example, this led me to the observation of some, for example, water heating behaviors of the conducting polymers. And after that, I moved to UCLA. So, and then start to use this kind of experience for some biomedical demonstrations. It's still kind of prototype or very early stage, but I think a lot of research are going to this direction. I just want to see what is the potential that I can use my experience in material processing and device fabrication that can advance the field of biomedical sensing or diagnostic. Then I moved to Hong Kong, so I got a faculty offer. Luckily, last year is very, sorry, the light is kind of UV sensitive, no, kind of infrared sensitive, so I need to stand up. Okay, now I have light. Then I moved to University of Hong Kong, which is also lucky because last year it was very competitive. Also, it's very difficult, I mean, globally. Hong Kong is a university with a kind of 100 years history. And this is just a picture for the actually taken from my apartment, which is university housing for faculty. It's a very nice view. And Hong Kong is also we have a very famous alumni that is Sun Zhongshan, also is kind of very respected people in the history of China. And actually, the university now is recruit talents. Okay, so just want to take a small advertise for the university. So now the university actually is trying to recruit 100 talents globally. So if you have interest in applying Hong Kong U, welcome to apply. It's a really very great university that with a very good history. So now I start to talk about from the history of this field. Okay. So organic electronics is a field that actually emerged in 1970s. So before, when we talk about a conductor, we talk about metals, right? Because more metals, you have a lot of electrons. They can move freely in the matrix. But plastics are normally considered not conductive. And in 1977, Professor Alan Hager, Professor McDermott, and also Shirakawa. Actually, Shirakawa was the postdoc at that time. He works in the lab. And they observed that if you put some iodine in this molecule called polyacetylene, you further dot with a lot of concentrations, you will make the polymer, which is a plastic, conductive. And this is the first paper of the conductive polymers. That means you construct this kind of alternative single and double bonds, which is called the conjugated systems, peptide stacking or something. Then it becomes conductive. This is a Nobel-winning paper. Nobel-winning paper does not to be on Science and Nature, but should be a very solid observation that can be on a very common journal. And after that, so people studied a lot in this area, trying to synthesize new polymers to improve the stability of this conductive polymer, or let's say use some dopants to improve the conductivity, or use some other elements to replace the backbone of this polymer to improve the stability of this material. But among them, actually, the P dot, which is developed in 1990s by the German company Bayer, is very successful. It's the most stable conductive polymer, not one of the most, but the most stable and the most successful conductive polymer now in the world. Actually, it sells tens of tons materials nowadays, and which is equal to billions of American dollars and on the market. They just simply sell these materials now. I mean, you synthesize one material, it becomes successful in the whole field, and which is also contributed to the really to the field and advance the development of the field. So, and then the first device that you can develop with organic materials is called OLED, organic LED emitting diode. So this device was first developed by a Chinese American, C.W. Tang, which is also, I mean, I think we should all proud of this this person. And actually, I think it's a Nobel-winning paper, but it still is not Nobel-winning, but it was prize of some others already he got it. So this device is on APL. I like the older style of the APL paper. Just two figures. One is schematic, the other one is just how it works, and then you publish on APL, very solid. You just make the stack layers of these organic materials, then you can make the device illuminate. And okay, so they can just you observe luminance. And this solid paper lead to the observation of the first OLED device. And this is also the field. So my first paper in academic is this paper. So I work on this kind of all fluorescent high color rendering index wet OLED device. Maybe you don't know, it's kind of very complicated topic, but it's a device that very ideal for the lighting purposes. And after that, also I contributed to the making the OLED pixels for display. So for the OLED, how it works is that you just make a lot of organic layers by thermal evaporation, and you make many layers together. Then you can observe light. So what you need to do, you need to balance the charge carrier injection, and also you need to balance the energy level alignment. So trying to make the device, I mean, not only have high efficiency, we call it quantum efficiency or something else, but also should be stable. That means at different voltage or current densities, the light density is not, I mean, the CRE or something is not changed too obviously. And actually, OLED now is very, very successful in the market. And you can see Samsung or Apple, they all use this kind of technology for display, especially for small display. If you go to Best Buy or other companies, actually, also you can observe OLED is used for the large scale TV display or something. And actually, the market now is $34 billion per year for the OLED display. So after the master study on the OLED, 3 years, and then at that time actually is an intersection for me. So I need to go to company or I need to go to industrial. So actually, this is a very, very important question for me. I was kind of hesitating for a long time. So actually, I was very lucky to get an offer from Huawei in 2012, and which is also very competitive in that year actually for us. And another is the PhD offer from Canada. And after, I mean, serious considerations, finally I gave out the offer at Huawei, and I went to Canada to start my PhD on organic bioelectronics. The reason is because I still think I love research, and I'm curious that how far this technology can go in this field. And I really believe that it can contribute, because you see the concept, organics for organics, right? Organics are human body, especially for in vivo applications. And this kind of semiconductor technology, if you can combine these two together, really is promising. I don't know how far it can go, but at least it was to try, especially with my background in that field. So I started to pursue my PhD in organic bioelectronics in Canada. So the story behind is always like this. So human body conducts ions, and the electronic devices conduct electrons. So there's two intrinsically mismatch of these two matters, right? So ionic signals, electronic signals, how you can find a good mediator to collect or to improve the communication between these two charge carriers. The other one is always the same. That means human body is soft and electronic devices are hard, right? So you need to make the devices as much as conformable, so you can minimize the mechanical mismatch at the interface to try to improve the singling collection or coupling between these two interfaces. And this is the first paper in 2007 called Organic Bioelectronics. Maybe not the first paper in this field, but it's first paper to define this field by Professor Magnus Berggren and also Agneta. So basically is to use conducting polymer P-dot PSS. Of course, many other materials can be used, but mostly used is still this material to use as a coating for medical devices, which is already approved by FDA last years to only use P-dot. But PSS, because of the acidic things, is still not approved by FDA, but P-dot is already approved, which is a great advancement of this field. Another one is to make the devices, for example, devices for drug delivery or for sensing purposes. The most successful one is organic electrochemical devices called organic electrochemical transistor, which I will introduce you later. So why it is important, right? So this device, if you think maybe variables is not very, very convincing to confine, right? Why we need a wearable device to be soft and flexible? If you make the device very small, it's already enough, right? But the thing is that if you really want to target in vivo applications, for example, implantables, right? You do need some softness. The thing is that if you can do it, right? If you can have a soft implantable as at least is very desired for chronic diseases, which is you need to implant into the brain for a very long time, not several days, but several weeks, months. In that case, you need to have very good biocompatibility and softness, because you don't want to move something very hard in the brain, right? Which is kind of also soft and some stretchy there. So you use organic materials, as I mentioned. So it's a very good mediator between the electrolyte and the electrode, ions and electrons. And then you will kind of decrease, I mean, that's kind of a definition called impedance. Impedance is a parameter that what is the coupling efficiency between two interfaces. If the impedance is low, that means the coupling efficiency is high. You can have very good signal communication between these two systems. But if not, if it's very high, means it's not good. The canonic polymer organics, for example, P dot PSS, of course it's good, right? Because it's first of all, it's organic, it conducts both charge carriers. The other one also because it's porous. For the metal, only the coupling can be happened on the interface, right? But if you have organics or polymers, the ions can penetrate through the bulk, and then you have more kind of reaction space. In that case, you can have very good coupling efficiency. And maybe you have a question that, well, you know, normally we use material just 100 nanometer thick, right? Why it can penetrate into this 100 nanometer parameter, right? Let's go to the fundamental question. How large is a single ion? Let's take an example for the sodium ion, right? It's about 0.2 nanometer. That means 100 nanometer thicknesses can at least include 500 amps, sodium amps, which is already enough for it to penetrate. It's a fundamental question. That means if you even you have kind of 100 nanometer, you can have this penetration back, doping or something. So if you have 1 micrometer, a lot of things can happen, right? This is similar thing to the hydrogels. Later I will introduce. So let's talk about the fundamentals of this device. Okay, you use canonic polymers not only for the coating, but let's say the other one is that to make them a device and what it can do. So you have this device, and this device must work in the electrolyte, which is, for example, in the brain. Transistor is that you have some connectivity between two electrodes called source and drain. You have some connectivity. And once you have signal come to the gate, for example, neuron signal, you apply a neuron signal here, which calls gate. Actually, you push ions into the channel, and also the ions can penetrate into the channel. You dedop the channel, you decrease the current between the source and drain. So the source and drain become a sensor, which is sensitive to the gate voltage applied, which pushes ions into the channel, right? And this device currently has the so far highest sensitivity to this channel. And this makes it a very good sensor for sensing electrophysiological signals, for example, action potentials of neurons. And also, if you modify the gate with some antibodies or something, if something happens here, you can measure the biomarkers, right? For example, also you have the, let's say the glucose oxidized. You can also measure the redox reactions here, and which can change the gate voltage, and subsequently you can measure the source drain voltage change. This device is a fundamental device of this field. And actually the thing is that how you can just improve the performance of the device for this biomedical application purposes. So as I said before, so the thing is that how you can make this device softer and also more robust, right? This is something in 2013, which is around 80 years ago, we started this kind of this research direction to develop soft organic bioelectronics, basically soft OECTs for these biomedical applications. And this research, luckily, we applied the very kind of prestigious scholarship in Canada called the 1-year Canada Scholarship. And with this proposal, we win the 1-year Canada Scholarship. So I win it actually not because of me, but it's kind of really because of you, because of your research, and also really because our research is exciting at the time. This is the reason you can get it. So actually it's always a combination, and also plus lucky. You need to be lucky enough because you don't know what people are thinking right at that time. But maybe they like this research more than my CV. So along this way for developing soft organic bioelectronics, the first part is that how I need to understand the P dot PSS, right? Because if I don't understand these materials, I have nothing to do. And at that time, I just know how to make OLED, which is small molecules that is very sensitive to the oxygen and air. Basically, OLED is made in a big chamber in clean room. You need to avoid the exposure to the to the water, to the humidity, to the air. But these materials, they work in water. So I need to understand basically what is P dot PSS, right? And I start to process. This is the first paper of my PhD. It's around 2 years, actually, because first year I need to also pass the qualified PhD postdoc pre-doc. At the same time, also I was in Canada, which I think Zhang knows. It's a French-speaking university, the University of Montreal. Everything is taught in French, but not to mention French, and my English is not that good at that time. So I need to work a lot to pass the exams. In the same time, I need to work hard in the lab to understand the materials. We start from very simple material processing. That means I just add chemicals, read the papers, and to understand what is P dot, what is PSS, what is the conductivity, right? Add different chemicals to this material and to investigate the conductivity, the later on the stretchability, the wettability, and also the mobility, right? So of these materials, we studied a lot, and then make them a transistor, fabricated device in the clean room, and to investigate the transient behaviors, which is kind of a parameter of to characterize a transistor, and to characterize the transfer output and hysteresis something with different chemicals, how these chemicals affect the parameters or performance of the device. As you may know, there's a lot of parameters, right? Each one single parameter, if you want to study it, you need a lot of time. And then, at least 2 years, I gain a lot of experience in understand the materials and understand the device, understand how to make a device. At that time, it is still relatively new of this field, OECT and P dot. After understanding the material for 2 years, and I start to make a device on flexible substrate. The idea of this device actually came out when Professor John Rogers came to our group to give a talk at the University of Montreal. And we have a small group meeting. I have the honor to talk with him personally. What is the future of flexible electronics? And I think maybe it's cool to explore, right? So because it's very in a very good alignment with my research, soft bioelectronics. And I think it's really very cool to push forward to make devices on plastic. Again, it's very difficult to make things by yourself because I don't have anyone senior to supervise me. I need to go to the top conferences, MRS, to talk with a lot of people, for example, very prestigious or very well-renowned professor, for example, Jonan Bo, and also Professor Stephen Lacou in EPFL, and also all the opportunities to talk with Professor Tako Samia and also many other famous professors, for example, George Maras. I try to understand the whole field and try to see what I can go, where I should go. And maybe these professors, some of them, they may remember me, some of them, they may forget me, but I appreciate them a lot. Also, I talk a lot when develop this kind of devices with Dr. Huiliang Wang. I still remember that is how he helped me at the beginning of the parameters. Because there's really no one can help me, I need to explore by myself. Of course, I got supervision from my supervisor also. And I try to make this device very, very small on plastic, but always a significant issue is that the device yield is really, really too poor. I make, for example, here you may have 1,000 devices, but maybe only 50 works. And the other ones is that they just don't work. I try to improve the device yield, but still, a lot of time has to be spent there because I will try to make it perfect, but actually it's not. You see the device performance here, but maybe only from one device here, and many others does not work actually. Yeah, but it's still, finally, I'm trying to make it kind of close to 90% of devices works. to make these arrays. And then to characterize this kind of stability or something others. It's totally a matter of the device manufacturing. And then the other way is that after make the devices on the flexible substrate, I try to move to the next step, how to make on elastomer. This is on PDMS. I think you know it's very well known elastomer. It makes things even more difficult because PDMS, the surface, is very tough and it's not the ideal substrate actually to make a microfabrication on top. But still, after struggling and many years kind of experience or with discussing with others, so I make very small devices. You see this kind of devices on elastomer PDMS, and you can see the channels is very, very, very good defined. And you can have this, for example, this is maybe 10 micrometer channel on the PDMS. Actually, is fabricated use transfer printing technology. And this device make me to make the first stretchable OECT. I'm very proud of this paper because still, I mean, the purpose is to make a soft organic bioelectronic devices. And to us, this is the first demonstration of a soft organic bioelectronic devices is a soft OECT. There's a lot of microfabrication and material processing stories behind. And for me, finally, I realized, actually, I went to UCLA and also discussing with many others, for example, people like you. I realized actually is an intersection field. It's not just transdisciplinary. So you see, in this device, I need to use the hydrogel as the gate medium. And I need to process the P dot PSS to be stretchable. Also, I need to make the source and drain electrodes to be stretchable on the PDMS. You need to process all these fabrications, right, manufacturing, and make the device work properly. There's a lot of things. For example, still now, the device performance on PDMS, we have the interface kind of not very ideal compared to the device on plastic or glass. So it's a field, you see, this is OECT field. And this is the manufacturing field, microfabrication. You need to process the soft canonic polymers. Actually, Professor Zhang work a lot in this field, right? And this stretchable P dot PSS, and also Professor actually Dr. Lipumi in UCSD, actually is one of the opinions. And also the other one is elastic hydrogel. So actually this paper is the first paper that we combine these four fields together to present such a device. Actually, this material, I still remember, I read the paper from Professor Zhang. He published the paper in 2012 on Nature, the stretchable and the tough hydrogel called polyacrylamide hydrogel. And I added some ions into it to combine, to assemble such a device. And this device finally works pretty well. That we make the first demonstration. And it's very few figures, it's actually just 3 figures, I think, very simple. And we submitted to the Journal of Chemistry of Materials, which is also very well respected journal in this field. And luckily it got accepted, and it's my first paper that with the impact factor more than 10. I was very excited at that time. And later on, because we have working in this field for a long time to processing materials and to processing material to be soft, and I had the opportunity that to observe that by accident, that if you break the channel by accidentally by a razor blade, actually the film can recover after dropping a drop of water. And this is the observation of the self-healing properties, we call it, for the canonic polymer thin films. So you may ask that, wow, it's not that very new, right? To see something healing is a lot of demonstrations. But remember, this device, you can make the thickness around 1 micrometer. That means 1 micrometer, you cut it, you have kind of tens of microns gap. You can heal it. For some demonstrations, you may need a very thick film. You push them together. There are some reversible hydrogen bondings or whatever others that you engineer. So with time, they become self-healed. You cannot separate them anymore. But how about for thin film devices? You never have the opportunity to put 2 things together, right? After you make patterns on the substrate, you will never have the way to push with your hand, right? But these ones, just expose them to humidity, for example, 90% humidity, or you just drop a droplet of water, you have the opportunity to heal the film. Which makes us very exciting. We make some kind of hypothesis to understand the story behind. But still, since we are not a material scientist, we're just engineers, we observe these phenomena, and we think that we add something new to the property of periodic PSS, which makes us very satisfying and exciting. And with kind of our contribution in this field, for example, from material processing to flexible devices, to soft devices, and to the self-healing properties of the thin films. And we got invited, and also actually our group got invited to review papers about using this kind of conformable OECTs for skin or a conformable of some variable demonstrations of these devices in this field. And this is from journal Nature, which makes us actually also feel that we are recognized, at least by this kind of famous editors on famous journals. And after the PhD, that is a long journey, right? From organic electronics to organic bioelectronics and the material processing, and then this kind of things. So another thing, right? I need to intersection. I need to make a selection or make a decision. So actually, I got connected. Actually, there's some hunters through LinkedIn contacted me that if we want to join Apple to study something about making some flexible OLED or processing some soft materials for the OLED. Apple invested a lot on OLED actually at the time. And another thing that actually at that time I was already in UCLA to use these materials or use my devices to explore something for biomedical applications. Especially Professor Alim Hosseini is a leading scientist in the area of hydrogels. I was using hydrogels right for assembling the soft OECT. And still, I think I have the interest to pursue in academic, right? Also, the salary is a big difference. And actually, but again, if you take the offer of Apple, the cost in the Bay Area also is very high. But totally depend on your interest. I think maybe go to Apple as a material scientist is boring for me. I don't have the the kind of the motivation to do something that I like. And at UCLA, at least, it's kind of freedom. I can lead a team. I'm very lucky to be a team leader, appointed by Professor Alim Hosseini, and we can explore something new. Of course, there's up and downs, but still we can pursue something we like. And then finally, I stay at UCLA to do research on this field. So the first observation is that with the background in that lab and also my experience in the OECT area and also many other talents. We have, for example, Yiran Chen, which is also now a PhD. He was a bachelor in China and then went to do a PhD, master in Ali's lab. And then now, after we work together, he is now in a PhD in Stanford University. So we work together, and then also there's another people called Liu Hao from Xi'an Jiaotong University, and also many others. And we make this kind of, we can make a periodic PSS hydrogel fiber. And the diameter can be, for example, as small as 10 micrometers or 20 micrometers, I don't remember, but still it's tens of microns. And we make them injectable. You can just extrude them to a tube. We call it injectable periodic PSS hydrogel fibers. And so we make this fiber, and after that, we make them a device. This device actually was characterized by Dr. Ling Hao Nan, now is a PhD in UCLA, at UCLA, and makes this first device, which makes us very exciting because really hydrogel fiber can also act as a channel materials for this device. It's a fundamental observation because after you demonstrate this, you can process a lot of things to this hydrogels, right? As a sensor for the hydrogel itself, you just modify the properties, right? It's sensitive to pH, oxygen, or some others, right? And also you can make a lot of things because it's just a unit. Whatever you can do, you can just, for example, scale up for interaction, something others. And the other one is that we put forward to use this kind of devices, which is kind of conformable or soft OECTs for the purpose of the medical variables. Is a very kind of interesting field. And I think we demonstrated some devices that we still combine with some devices, and that is miniaturized component for the OECD characterization, and we use OECD to sense some glucose in artificial sweat. We didn't really do the experiment on human body because we don't have the ARB, which is a protocol. Okay, and this is a very interesting field. Actually, Yiran is here, Professor Wei Gao, and also, for example, we also collaborated with Professor Sam Nejad at UCLA, which is the leading figures in this field, also from UCSD Zhang and also Alijevi group at UC Berkeley. So these are respected names. But of course, this field we demonstrated that the use of I think the first skin attachable OECT from a tattoo to demonstrate such an application. And after that, we also make the soft OECT to demonstrate some pressure sensors that combine the OECT with hydrogels. As you can see, this is a hydrogel from Ali's lab. It's called Gelma, and there's a lot of ions inside. We use a very general used approach to make this this kind of micro needle structures, and by applying gate, it will be very sensitive to the pressure you apply. Is this a journal really kind of, we study a lot of materials, we submit to material journals, and this is the first paper that we submitted to the HOE journal, Electrical Device Letters, which is also, impact factor is around 3, much lower, but it is a very respected journal in that field. And we demonstrated that it is a kind of the first pressure sensor use soft OECTs and to demonstrate this kind of purposes. And also actually we applied a patent for these devices, combine these two different fields. And this paper was done by Xiaochen Wang. He was a visiting scholar at the time from China to UCLA. He spent there for 6 months. He works every day from morning to late, I think sometimes to 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Nobody pushes him. He works by himself. 6 months as a master student. He has no papers in China and got the first paper in HV EDL at UCLA. I think he's proud of himself. Most of the work is done by him. So now at HKU, after I come to Hong Kong, so what we are doing is that I just make some demonstrations before, right? Fundamentals and applications of soft OECTs, there's a lot of space. You only make this device, a lot of problems. Performance is not good, right? Fundamental is not very well understand, right? What is the mobility of the materials on the device, right? What's the hysteresis? What is on-off, right? And how you can make them very small to integrate them, and how you can apply these devices for real applications. For example, neuron probes, right? For example, for medical variables. A lot of things need to be explored. Because you demonstrated this fundamental new device, there's a lot of things to understand. The other one is that OECT is towards variables. That means it does not to be soft or flexible, but you need to make them very small, reliable, and stable to be integrated into, for example, a waistband, a band, or let's say something small for portable applications, integrated with cell phone something, right? As a novel organic biosensor or biosensing system for future biomedical innovations, especially the future is a matter of the healthcare, right? Especially from this pandemic, what we have learned. And the third one is the reading research field called the neuromorphic devices and logic. That means you use OECT to mimic a neuron, right? Because it's a device working with electrons and ions. So inherently is the most similar device to the neuron because it is organic. It does conduct ions, it does conduct electrons, and it can be soft as a neuron. And this is some field that we are trying to explore at this University of Hong Kong. And luckily, I have very good students now working with me together. We are also very excited and very grateful to my great team members from very good universities and also from with very good background. We are really a very interdisciplinary team. We have material scientists, we have the devices person, and also we have software engineering person, which works on the software directions. And so this fundamentals include the performance, as I mentioned, to improve the performance of devices, and then to understand the stability, right? There's a lot of things happen, right? How you can improve the bonding between each layers, right? This is something fundamentals we need to explore here. And the miniaturization of the devices is a device person is working on. That means, for example, this is our work in the APL paper, the AFM paper. We make the device very small for the skin attachable OCT paper. Actually, we developed the first very miniaturized system. I mean, we use engineering properties to collect as small as possible components that can be combined together and then to characterize the OCT on the skin, right? And this is the first demonstration last year, 2020 APL. Of course, this is a collaboration with my very good friend from University of Michigan, and was a postdoc at that time at UCLA at that time called Dr. Qing Yucui. He developed this such a small system for me. I very appreciate his help. And now with our teams are developing this kind of very small characterization system for OECD characterization. We are trying to apply patent. We are trying to do something more fancy. Okay, and I appreciate my research team members, especially called Xin Tian. Also, he works in this field. I appreciate his work behind. These parameters he got actually is a lot of things. It's already half a year development, and now it's turned to be measured nowadays. So for the neuromorphic devices, as I mentioned, is just to take advantage of the electron and ion connection of the devices to mimic the neurons, and then to realize some neuromorphic or some kind of hardware AI with the OECT devices. Now it's happened in our lab. So finally, I want to make an advertise for myself. So actually, we are organizing the MRS conference, so which is fall in this year. Is soft heatable materials and devices for biological interfaces and wearables. So, and then feel free to submit your abstract or encourage your colleagues to submit the abstract if you want. And this is, we organize together with different professors in this field, very leading names. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Hope you can make a clear presentation here.
Thank you so much, Professor Zhang, for the inspiring and wonderful talk. So currently we're moving on to our Q&A session. If you have any questions, please either put it in the Q&A box, or you can raise your hand so we can unmute you and you can talk directly to Professor Zhang.
Okay, I can start with a question. Great talk, Professor Zhang. So can you just in a few words, briefly talk to us what is the working principle of electrochemical transistors or organic electrochemical transistors, and what's so unique about this that this can enable like the things you mentioned, for example, connecting ions and electrons? Yeah. That's
Thank you very much, Kewang. We are very old friends, right? For this question. So I think you mentioned the fundamentals of this OECT, right? And then what's the next question? Is that what is the new?
Yeah, like so basically, how does this EC transistor work, and why can it connect ions and electrons while other transistors can't? Yeah, that's my question.
Good. I got it. So as you can see this device, right? So first of all, the principle, how it works, right? Sorry, didn't explain it very clear. So basically, there's two electrodes, source and drain. Can you see my mouse?
Yes,
you cannot.
Yes.
You can see the mouse? Okay.
Yeah.
So you have the source and you have the drain. And you have the conducting polymer P dot PS in between, right? And so in this case, once you apply a potential, you have the current. This is just a resistor, right? But in this case, when you apply a gate potential, for example, is a neuron signal count, the action potential to the gate. So this neuron potential, because the gate is here, and then the other part is connected to the source. This is 0. So you have potential difference between gate and source, right? This potential difference will push the positive ions, for example, positive signal, right? Pushes the positive ions into this conducting polymer matrix I explained, right? It's porous. You push them into it. And then you have electrochemical reactions happens, which is a P dot PSS. P dot is positively charged, which is oxidized, is compensated by the PSS, which is kind of to charge the charge balance, neutralized. And then because you have this kind of positive ions come, and then you take another electrons from the source or the drain, you will reduce the P dot to 0 state. P dot, if you reduce it, is not conductive anymore because you lose the conjugated system. You break the conjugated system. And then the conductivity will decrease a lot. And this process is reversible. That means if you remove the gate potential, it can come back. If you apply it, it will just reduce the current again. This is the mechanism of OECT. Okay, compared to other devices, for example, field effect. Field effect device is a device used mostly in computers. For example, CMOS, right? The CMOS device is silicon-based. First of all, the dielectric is not electrolyte. There's no ions. Nobody, no, at least they don't use electrolyte or something. So first of all, it does not play very good with ions. It's a dielectric. You polarize the dielectric, and then you have some surface charges induced here, very thin channel, 3 nanometers, and then you induce a channel here, so become conductive or not. But of course, you see, yeah, I can replace this dielectric with electrolyte, right? The same device called field effect. Yes, you do can, and then you reduce the gate potential. For example, here is 50 volt, and you can reduce to let's say 3 volt or even 1 volt, right? But still, you can not penetrate into the matrix of the silicon, which is also very rigid. And in this case, we call it a parameter called transconductance, means how the conductivity is sensitive to the voltage applied here, right? What is sensitivity, right? In this case, since you only have the capacity to induce the conductance here on the interface, 3 nanometers or maximum 10 nanometers, it's not enough. So using conducting polymers to make it porous, that means not stay on the surface, but also make them bulk, right? In this case, you have much higher sensitivity. I give you a parameter. It can be 100 or even 1,000 times higher, the sensitivity. For example, use OECT to detect a neuron signal. Now it's a world record. It's around 55 dB. You know, the signal to noise ratio or something. Transconductance is much higher, much higher, 1,000 times maybe. And in this case, it has huge potential to be used for example, to record the neuron signals. And on the other hand, for example, if you have some reactions, let's say redox, enzymatic reactions, or capacitive reactions happen on the gate, such a small voltage change can also cause a change in the source drain current. Because it is high sensitivity, which means an amplifier. You have one, for example, 1.0 change here at the gate, you may have 10.0 change here. This is the kind of fundamentals. Application is for the kind of biosensors or for some neuron problem applications.
Yeah, great answers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hope you understand.
Sounds great. And then one of our audience, Hui Zhu, is promoted to the panelist, and you can directly speak to Professor Zhang for the question.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Zhang, for your nice talk. I have 2 questions. The first one is regarding to the healing property of what you mentioned about the film. Let me see. What is the reason for the healing property for the P dot and PSS thin films? What do you expect is the reason behind this?
Okay, this is the first question, right?
Yeah.
So the healing, as I said just now, still is a hypothesis. So as I said, we are not a material scientist. So just engineer and we observe this phenomenon. It works very well. So later on, what we did is that we work with hydrogels. And when the hydrogel is very thick, it can be 1 millimeter or even higher. You cut a hydrogel or you cut a TOF, for example, a TOF, what we bought from the market. If you cut it with the cut TOF, I think everyone did it, right? If you cut it, of course, they come back immediately because of this kind of visco elasticity or something others. If you make them very thick, and then they can just push back because for example, you cut a kind of a line made of the sand, right? The sand, they come back because it's viscoelastic properties, hydrogel. But for thin film, I think still is not very thin. For example, 1 micrometer thick or 10 micrometer thick. Still, I mean, for thin film, it's still not very thin. So still, they have the chance to come back if it's very elastic, because if we make things kind of, if it's very thick, it become a little bit soft. There's water inside. Another one that for very thin, for example, 1 micrometer thick, the mechanism we use to explain is that you see this figure. So the P dot PSS include both P dot and PSS. P dot is hydrophobic. That means there's no way that they can play something with water. But PSS is hydrophilic. And actually in the film, most of the part is PSS. The ratio is around 1 to 2.5. That means 2.5 is PSS. These materials are dry. Once you put water into this kind of gun, and this kind of very hydrophilic components will try to absorb water, start to swell, right? And with very high mobility, because now they are in the water, right? And they have the chance to come back together, to kind of mitigate, to move together, to heal this kind of channel. Yeah, still is our hypothesis. Since it happens in kind of just, I think, 2 or 3 milliseconds, this kind of healing process. And actually later on, there's another paper from UCSD, is a chemistry of material paper. They further decrease the thickness to 800 or something, 300 nanometer, I don't know. But at that time, still is not very sure, but maybe some kind of other mechanisms. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And my second question is about the pressure sensing, about the soft OECT, because I'm quite new about this area. So I have a question like, how does it work? How the mechanical signal can be transferred to the electrical signal?
Okay, so this question actually goes back to the question from Kewang. It's similar. So in this case, we make a structure, for example, magneto here, and then you apply gate here. Once you apply pressure, you will change the capacitance here. You see at the beginning, capacitance is kind of small or high, and then after you apply pressure, you change the capacitance here. In this case, you will change the voltage drop on the channel, and which in turn change the source drain current.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Hi, Yiran. Hi, Shiming. Nice talk. Very inspirational. I think your talk is mainly focused on like hydrogel-based OECT, right? And you demonstrated some. You focus on the introduction of the fundamental and also demonstrate some epidermal-based electronics applications, right? So can you share your comments about the advantage of using hydrogel for epidermal electronics, especially hydrogel-based OECT for epidermal electronics? That's my first question.
Okay, so I did research on hydrogels when I went to UCLA, right? So actually, most of the research at the beginning was not related to hydrogel. So I started to work with hydrogels because I need to use hydrogel to demonstrate my first soft OECT 2007, because I need to use the soft hydrogel as a gating medium to demonstrate the fully stretchable hydrogel. So as for the hydrogels for the epidermal applications, I think so far I haven't used any hydrogels for epidermal purposes. So the device I used, for example, the epidermal sensors is still the P.PSS thin film. So hydrogel is a carrier for the device fabrication. After that, it was removed. So it's just a carrier to move the channel to the substrate, and then after that, it was removed. Hydrogel for epidermals, I think the advantage, if I want to comment, is that it really, is the most similar material to the human tissue. Mm-hmm. And it's really kind of, for example, biocompatibles and others is really very good. And if you know that the hydrogel patch for wound healing, for example, if you go to the pharmacy or in US, you go to the CVS, right? Rankutu in Canada, right? So you will find that a lot of medical patch for wound healing, for the kind of something others for medical purposes, they are hydrogels, right? They are very kind of conformable. And also, if you wear a hydrogel, you feel comfort, very comfort compared to a medical patch. It's not the trunk here we used. No, not that one. It's a kind of large area hydrogel patch. And if you can have something really, if you can some drug delivery components, and if you can really have some sensors incorporated in this hydrogel, I'm not sure if you need to directly fabricate a hydrogel, because really it's kind of technically it's very challenging, right? It's not a science problem, it's just a technical problem. I'm not sure if that is needed, but if you can make something very kind of thin or on a very thin plastic, flexible, attach them on hydrogel, and it can send some disease information from the wound. And at the same time, you have some drug delivery components in the hydrogel. I think that it really deserves to explore. It's really kind of, let's say, smart drug release system or whatever that it deserves to be further developed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your sharing. Actually,
another thing I want to comment is that water. People always kind of doubt what is the water evaporation issue for hydrogel, right? But if you go to the pharmacy, you will realize all these kind of medical product, they have a back layer which is a thin plastic, right? There's no way water can escape from this thin plastic, right? The interlayer is a hydrogel, which is interface directly with your skin, right? You don't worry the water evaporation because the back layer is a thin plastic. This is a medical bandage. What is the components there?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
No need to add a kind of, let's say, the salt or something to prevent that.
Yeah.
Because it never happen.
Yeah, maybe it's my misunderstanding during my listening to your talk, because I was wondering you use hydrogel to demonstrate the to demonstrate the OECT. Yeah,
I will do that part maybe for in vivo applications, because
that's my second question. My second question is about I saw you mentioned that you will do some future work in Hong Kong University and focusing on the biomedical engineering. So I'm wondering if you will do some implantable demonstration or implantable application, and if it is, so what's the advantage using OECT compared with other device using other mechanism for the implantable in vivo application? That's my second question.
Very, very good. Since you have been working in this field for long, right? Expert. So yes, I'm very curious, and also I want to do the implantables, but in the short term, I think I'm not able to, because as a new professor here, I need to build collaborations and I need to start my lab, right? It takes time. By the time, I think I can work on something material side and also device fabrication side. But for this kind of animal related researches, it may take longer time to establish protocols, collaborations, and whatever. So what is the advantage of using OECT, right? What we are making is biomedical devices. Mm-hmm. The most important thing on top of everything, for example, stability and whatever kind of flexibility, softness, on top of everyone is the sensitivity. If your sensor is sensitive, you win everything. No other technique can compete with you, right? So only left problem is that how you can solve other technical problems to improve its performance for commercial applications, clinical applications. OECT in terms of the sensitivity, to my knowledge, for electrochemical technology, it is the best. If whatever you can find from literature, the thing is that how you can improve this, how you can take advantage of the sensitivity to improve other parameters. This is something that needs to be explored. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to your future results and future work. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Next is Kewang. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, Shiming. This is Kewang Nan. Thank you very much for your great talk. It's very interesting. But I'm in the field of traditional electronics, so I ask a question from this point of view. First, so is this organic transistor sensitive to magnetic field?
So is it 迅达 or 旷达?
Not at all. There's no. Yes, this is Kewang Nan speaking.
Okay, 旷达 is my old friend. Yeah, thank you for asking.
Yeah, I'm still in Montreal. Looking forward to seeing you again here.
Okay, very good. Yeah, hope everything is well with you. Yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. We'll talk later.
Actually, I was consulting 旷达 when I was developing the miniature system for OECT characterization. I'm not sure if you still remember.
Yeah, I still remember. And you consulting me about joining Apple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I consulted you about the Apple things. But I think you were in Apple for half a year, right?
Yeah, that time.
Yeah. So magnetic things, I think my supervisor Fabio Chikora at University of Montreal Eco Polytechnic. So we call Polytechnic to you, right?
Yeah.
So he won a big prize. I don't know, grant. I think which is around $1.5 million US dollars or Canadian dollars for the MRI. No, the shield, the electromagnetic shield or something, right? So
okay.
EMI or something. I think
electromagnetic interference study.
Yeah, EMI.
Yeah, EMI. Okay.
Yeah, but that one, I'm not sure if it is sensitive to the electromagnetic because it's a shield, it's a conductor, right? It's a conductor coating on the surface, and then it will just screen the EM signals. But I'm not sure if this material is sensitive to EM or to what extent it is sensitive to that EM. I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah. I'm just curious because I used the liquid crystal under magnetic field before, so the moleculars of liquid crystal can rotate with respect to the magnetic field.
Oh, see. Yeah. Liquid LCD, yeah, I know that.
Okay, just out of curiosity. And second question is, could you comment on the carrier transport velocity of this organic transistor and compare it with traditional transistors like a FET?
You mean the mobility?
Yes, the carrier transport mobility velocity.
So yeah, basically the speed, right? The speed.
Yes.
Yeah, good question. It's always an issue, yeah, right? You pose a very important question. For example, I come from the silicon industry, right? So silicon, I think, is around the conductivity is around 10 to the power of 5 or even higher, or at least you can make it right heavily doped silicon. But OECT conductivity is only 10 to the power of 3. Okay, if you talk about mobility, I think silicon or even amorphous, I think now can go up to 1,000 Siemens per square centimeter per voltage per second, right? I mean, I forgot the unit, but anyway, it's around 1,000. But P dot PSS, which is the best conducting polymers, the mobility is around less than 1. So still 1,000 times less than the silicon. But remember, we are not trying to use this material for high frequency devices, right? That is very important for high frequency devices. But this device is used for bioelectronics, which is deal with the neurons. The speed is already enough for neurons because the speed of neurons is kind of millisecond. Yes, so that is already, but it's 1,000 times or at least, or even more than that, less than silicon, the mobility.
Okay, understand. I have a third question. So it's very interesting that organic transistors are mostly used as a sensor, right? And which is different for the traditional semiconductor transistors, mostly used for switches, amplifications, or signal processing. So do you have any perspective about using organic transistors for, let's say, to use as a switches, to use for processing signals, to use as somehow traditional transistors in the future if we solve the speed issue?
Very good question. I think the last sentence is that if we solve the speed issue, right? So if we don't solve the speed issue, we can enable some new applications. So for example, as I said, we are trying to make this device like neurons. So that's a concept to make AI hardware or something kind of synaptic transistors or neuromorphic devices. That is trying to mimic the behavior of neuron. And we make this synapses together to really mimic what is the brain working. It's not a traditional, for example, we call it a von Neumann one Neumann. The structure, which you have the processor, you have the storage, and then you need to have the kind of channels to connect these two between. And because it's this kind of, you cannot further decrease the dimensions of the devices, actually now you have a bottleneck, right? And this kind of devices, we're trying to make a neuromorphic device to combine the signal processing and the storage in one device. And we call it neuromorphic devices or synapses to really mimic the working principle of the neuron, combine these things together to make a logic. It works like a brain. In the big future, for example, in the very future, we may synthesize a kind of components that the speed is not as high as a computer, is much lower, but it's exactly the same as a brain. That is that you can really, for example, I'm talking to you, right? So you can respond and you can talk back to me. So really we want to make that part an integrated part to mimic the working of the neurons of the brain and to compete with the conventional CMOS-based devices. But it's not to compete with the high-frequency CMOS-based devices. We will never compete. We will never able to compete with the silicon-based devices or CMOS.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kewang.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the audience? Okay, if not, then we thank again for Professor Zhang's wonderful and inspiring talk. Oh wait, we just got a final question. Another question, not the final one. From Choi Kang. I can unmute you and promote you to the panelists if you want to ask directly. And you can unmute yourself right now.
Oh, well, okay. Very nice talk. Thanks, Professor Zhang. I'm not an expert in this area. I'm just wondering, could you please comment on, what is the difference between the idea of the stretchable conductors? Those things invented by the Zhang Bao's group, and the things that you're working on, the software bioelectronics. I just think they're pretty similar, and they both having ideas of the PEDOT or something. So I'm just a little confused about the difference between the two types of things. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the question. So in which field you are working on?
I'm working on computational mechanics and material science.
Okay, good. So actually, as I said, Professor Zhang is a very well-respected kind of leading scientist in this field. And for example, the electronic spin, organic electronics, and also the soft materials, soft conducting polymers, and even for whatever new in this field, Professor Zhang definitely is a leading scientist and also is an inspirational figure for the Chinese community and also the US community in the material science research. So what is the difference between us is that, can you hear me? I think I have my dark screen.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, is that good now? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So as I said, actually, we may work a lot of things in the same similar direction, because at that time we were a small group. But actually, we started in 2013. And along this way, I read a lot of papers from Professor Zhang. But actually, Zhang, to my knowledge, she doesn't work in the field of OECT. Since 2019, I see a paper from her group, co-published, I think, with a professor called, what's his name? In Singapore, Xiaodong, Chen Xiaodong group, I think. Yeah. So she started to work a little bit in OECT, but I think the device, if you work in organic electronics, you will know that device is different from device, right? So, and Professor Zhang work a lot of things on field effect transistors, but as I already mentioned a lot in the previous talk. So we work on a device called OECT, is organic electrochemical transistor. And trying to make a stretchable organic transistor is an intersectional approach. We need to, for example, use OECT approach, hydrogels, right? Which I also take advantage of, for example, Professor Zhang source material. And also I need to make the stretchable electrodes, which actually is from Professor Stephen Lacour in EPFL, and also elastomers and the conducting polymer PSS. So make them stretchy or something. So actually, when Professor Zhang published the paper in Science Advances in 2017, the process of stretchable PSS is the same year that we published the stretchable transistor OECT. So it's a little bit different the devices. But we work in the same field. Yeah, but depends on how you define the organic bioelectronics and organic electronics. Because as I said, Professor Zhang work totally on organic electronics, and bioelectronics is a branch of organic electronics.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And Shuwang Wu, please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi, Shiming. I'm
Hi,
Shuang, actually. Yeah. Wonderful talk. Actually, I learned nothing about your area. Actually, I'm just one quick question. It's quite stupid. In one slide, you presented some different ions from lithium to sodium to potassium, right? I'm quite interested in the ion specificity. So my question is where the different ions affect the performance of this transistor.
Okay, it's not a stupid question. Well, congratulations on your Nature paper and many others. I think
thank you.
You will be a famous scientist very soon. So
thank you very much.
Come back to China, or you want to stay in the US?
I will come back to China maybe this year, end of this year.
Okay. Congratulations. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, for the ions, yeah. So if you, for example, don't care about if you make a big device, yeah, it does not have the selectivity to the ions. Yeah. For example, let's say the sodium or potassium or calcium, right? So they all turns to have the result that change the current of the channel. So you will never have the selectivity. So what people do is always the same thing, that you have selective memory you can buy from Sigma. And there, if you code the gate electrodes, which the gold electrode or whatever other materials will be selective to this memory because of the electrochemical Nernst equation, right? So you have this kind of concentration change of these ions, you may sense them. But another thing is that there's a paper I can share with you later that if you trying to dope them with ions of different sizes, if you make them device very small, let's say 5 micrometer or 10 micrometer, from the decay curve, let's say you apply a gate potential, after that you remove them, right? So you have the decay curve on the source drain current, right? From this decay curve, the ions of different size will have different decay curve, but it is on very small scale, maybe 100 micrometer, a microsecond size. Okay, and this one maybe 120, 130, right? So one moves faster will have faster decay, will have sharp decay curve, right? And move slower will have kind of not very sharp decay curve. Yeah, this part you need to observe with very small device because you want to see this resolution and change.
Okay, got it. Okay, could you, you mentioned, could you send me that paper? I'm very interested in this.
I will. It's a Nature communication paper in 2013. I will send you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
And welcome back to China.
Yeah, so maybe.
I know which university you will go.
I'm not sure. I'm still looking for positions.
I will ask you personally.
Yeah. Yeah. We can talk later.
Okay, thank you, Zhang. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the audience? If no more questions, we would like to thank Professor Zhang again for his wonderful and inspiring talk. Zheng, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Yiran and Kewang for the hosting, and thanks Professor Zhang for the nice talk. And I just want to mention about the next talk will be by Professor Jingjie Yang from Cornell University, sharing his research on the mechanics of biological materials and biomechanics. Yeah, hope to see you all in the next talk. Yeah, the next talk will be in May 22nd. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jen, for the invitation again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, then you can feel free to leave the chat.